And next up, we have TallyGo. Presenting for TallyGo, we will have Tom Scarmolino and Tim Gildia. Please welcome them to the stage. All right, you have 6 minutes. Take it away.
Hey guys, I'm Tom with TallyGo. Battling traffic is a huge problem. It's already insanely bad, and it's only getting worse. To cope, we use nav apps, but the apps you use aren't nearly as smart as you think. Let's say we're going from downtown LA to Santa Monica. Where does that route actually come from? There are literally billions of possible routes, even for that short drive. So calculating the fastest one in milliseconds is a really hard computational problem. To solve this, apps don't actually calculate all possible routes when you search to go somewhere. Instead, they take a big shortcut. They pre-compute some routes for that time of day in advance, and they store them in a database so they can return a result quickly. Because they're pre-computing routes, they need to take an even bigger shortcut. They assume traffic doesn't change during the course of your drive. This means if you search to go somewhere at 3 p.m., each stretch of road is calculated using traffic data for 3 p.m. But you obviously won't get to, say, this particular turn until 3:15. This is why these apps reroute you so frequently. Even Waze is pre-computing routes, just more of them. If a driver tells Waze that a highway is congested, Waze simply falls back to a pre-computed arterial route so they can get you there faster than Google. Now, fortunately, there are much more accurate sources of traffic data besides phones, like loop detectors and traffic cameras, and soon, advanced vehicles. Loop detectors are circuits installed in the road that monitor traffic speed and volume, and they've been installed everywhere. For example, we monitor in our hometown of Los Angeles a real-time feed of 25,000 of these sensors. They give us 23 million traffic readings per day. Now, TallyGo began as a USC research project 5 years ago, comparing the accuracy of apps to this loop detector data. What we found is that these apps are leaving a lot on the table. So we built the first ever intelligent routing layer for minute-level data. And we spun off all this protectable IP into TallyGo. This IP enables us to provide what's called time-dependent routing, where the cost of each stretch of road is calculated based on when you're actually expected to reach each turn. This ensures we find the actual fastest route, which is one that other apps have likely already excluded. As you can see here, while any company can use real-time as a marketing term, TallyGo is the only one today truly living up to that name, with minute-level traffic data ingestion, prediction, accidents, and routing. This positions us to solve a really costly problem, which is that embeddable navigation simply doesn't exist today. These businesses here that depend on moving people or things around cannot currently incorporate a real-time, turn-by-turn navigation experience directly into their apps. Say you're a delivery company. Your driver accepts an offer, switches over to another app to navigate, and then switches back once they've arrived. No big deal, right? Wrong. This results in a 90% uncontrolled experience, and it has huge costs to the businesses who rely on it. Case in point, when we arrived at the airport a few days ago, we requested an Uber. As we waited patiently for our car to arrive, no fewer than 10 Ubers dropped people off and drove away empty. With TallyGo, those drivers would have received a single set of dynamically updating turn-by-turn instructions spanning all of their pickups and drop-offs for the entire day. They would be printing money, and so would Uber. But right now, any company that needs navigation is faced with three really poor options. Most redirect their users to another app, which is a huge missed opportunity. Others try to cobble together a solution using crappy open source tools. And a few sink millions into trying to become a navigation company themselves, which is a huge distraction to their core business. With TallyGo's navigation SDK, for the very first time, any company can embed real-time, turn-by-turn navigation directly into their existing apps. And we make it so incredibly easy to do. Here are the 5 steps to integrate TallyGo's SDK. Drag the SDK into your project. Create a button. Create a view controller. Connect that button to that view controller. Add a few lines of code, literally 3 lines of code. And then voila, profit. Take it for a spin. So let's do just that. TallyGo recently worked with the Los Angeles Fire Department to integrate its SDK for emergency response. Can we switch to the live demo, please? The SDK integrates seamlessly with their active events and approved hospitals. So the firefighter EMT sees everything she needs pop up right on the map.
TallyGo, take a left onto Fair Oaks Avenue. Your next turn will be in 0.3 miles, a right onto California Boulevard. In an eighth of a mile, California Boulevard is coming up. Get ready to take a right. Take a right onto California Boulevard. Your destination is 440 feet ahead. Well done. You've arrived at your destination.
And as you can see, we've arrived without a hiccup. Can we switch back to the presentation, please? By the way, it took us less time to build that app using our SDK for the fire department than it took Apple to approve it. So we believe that navigation is the next revolution in SaaS, and that very soon it will be embedded everywhere. We're going to be the platform that accelerates that future. And if your business depends on moving people or things around, get in touch, and you can help accelerate it too. Thank you.
All right, who has questions for TallyGo? Go ahead.
So how, you're in LA, or parts of LA, right? So how clean and uniform is the data that you're getting and the interfaces to those data from municipality and group within each municipality to municipality?
Sure. So there is absolutely nothing prohibiting this technology from covering all of planet Earth other than the size of our team today. The actual loop detector data has been installed over the last 4 or 5 years in virtually every city or county in the civilized world. It's accessible, it's available. Our point is that we expect many companies to be using this data. They don't have tech stacks that can currently exploit it in a real-time way. And that's where our advantage is, not in any particular unique access to data.
What is the size of your team today?
Our team is a little over a dozen folks today.
And what's the coverage?
So, sorry.
What cities?
We operate in a number of segments right now, and we'll have full national coverage early next year.
So if the data is not truly unique to you, what stops another larger company from coming in and doing exactly this and making you sort of unnecessary?
Sure. Well, from a tech stack standpoint, it's an incredibly difficult problem, the routing problem. There is a trade-off that has plagued the industry for 30 years between finding the absolute fastest path, the single fastest way to get somewhere, and doing it in milliseconds so a user doesn't sit there waiting for it. To solve that problem, virtually every navigation stack has implemented some form of pre-computation like I described. Once you're doing pre-computation, it doesn't matter if traffic is changing every 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. You can't incorporate that complexity into your technology. And so they'd have to rebuild their tech stacks, which anyone can do. We can build rocket ships to Mars, but it's a very difficult problem to solve. Yeah.
I mean, the way you describe it sounds like magic. I mean, all of us should be downloading it right now and using it instead of Waze. Like, are there gotchas here? Like, can you, if I'm outside of LA, can I use it? Or even within LA, how is the routing? Like, how do you know where everything is? Like, help us understand that.
We're not a consumer-facing company, so you can't download it. We embed our application into everyone else's experience, so you can't download it.
But so I download the fire department's app or whatever. You know, how do you?
Yeah, you'll get there faster than
when
Google
I
Maps or
download
Waze.
Apple Maps. When I download Apple Maps, you know, they put years and years of work into it. You couldn't get anywhere. And yet, out of the box, it seems like you guys can do?
We've been studying this for about a decade at the University of Southern California. This is a spin-off of the Transportation Sciences Lab. We have 4 granted patents and numerous others pending. We've been doing this for a long time. Many of the folks at Google used to study with one of my co-founders. Many of the folks at Apple, same thing. We've got some leading folks who've been doing this for a very, very long time.
So what is your plan to move this from a great research project and something that, you know, the fire department is using to something that is ubiquitous across all navigation apps?
I'm sorry, can you repeat, what's the...
Just something, so what is your plan to get there? I mean, this is an interesting SDK that you've built, but how do you commercialize this?
Frankly, the SDK is something that you can download very easily and install in a matter of minutes.
Yes, but how do you make people do that? How are you getting there?
We intend to go to market aggressively. We're already working with some very large trial partners, right? And we're launching publicly. We'll have public pricing early next year on the website. And at that point, it's a question of scaling. And we're particularly focusing on the on-demand delivery space, the ride-sharing space, the map search space, and obviously the vehicle space.
How do you charge?
We charge, the structure is very similar to how you pay for, say, Google Maps for work. The structure is very similar. It just happens to be cheaper.
So then your competition essentially either plug a Google API, Google Maps API or yours for routing?
There's no competition because nobody offers turn-by-turn navigation as an SDK. We're the first company to do it.
The companies they would think of as competition are consumer companies, essentially.
So there's some companies who are some of the largest companies in the world who have consumer navigation experiences. They dominate that space.
Sure,
right?
No,
they could, in theory, release an SDK, sure.
I guess my point is, so you're not concerned that at any point Google or Waze launches an SDK?
Google and Waze have an SDK. All it does is transfer you over to their current app. Yeah.
For what you're doing, sorry, for the underlying navigation system.
They certainly could. The problem is that those companies have much bigger ambitions. They want to own transportation, own autonomous vehicles, own ride sharing. For all those companies, navigation is a means to an end. We are Switzerland. We are just your navigation provider. Those folks want to erect a proprietary moat around their technology so they can use it to own another, what they would view as bigger space, right? We operate for any of the other companies who need the solution, but obviously building it themselves is a huge distraction. Moreover, most of our customers wouldn't want to buy from Google. You may know this in your experience with Uber. As you start to reach a certain scale, it becomes an existential threat to rely on some of these large companies for something that core to your business. And so there's competitive concerns there too. We're Switzerland for a very fast-growing market.
All right, let's give it up to TallyGo, Switzerland.